Hello, I'm Patrick Slevin, the host of the NIMBY War Room, and we have a special episode here on the road. I'm in Kentucky. I'm working on a client project. I have a series of meetings with some influencers and stakeholders to recruit them to advocate for the project. So essentially, wherever I'm going on the road, which is almost every week, the War Room follows, so it's great to have you here. So let's lead off with why am I saying NIMBY activists suck? And why am I being unprofessional in the eyes of some folks who may be watching this? Let's go into the war room and we'll talk more about it.
Initialize program.
There's a profile out there of NIMBY opposition that has to be called out. And that's what I'm doing here on this episode. I'm not talking about the NIMBY opponents who are homeowners who hear on the grapevine about a Walmart or some big project coming out of the ether in their backyard, and they're left with more questions and anxieties than they deserve. And that's not who I'm talking about. And I'm not talking about developers who are all good and every project is needs to be approved. There are bad projects and bad actors out there as well. So when I'm talking about NIMBY activists suck, it's a profile that is well known within this industry, but no one wants to talk about it, and I'm going to do that here. And so there's two primary profiles as to why they suck, and I'm not going to use that word anymore in this episode, but you get the point. So the first of many, but I'm going to go on two, is what I call the crusaders. These are crusaders who are environmentalists, preservationists, and conservationists. These are activists who oppose projects, not necessarily because they're bad or not sustainable, but because they have a membership that they have to feed. They have to build that value for joining that environmentalist group. And so they need to be in the media. They need to be out in front in the public hearings to justify to the members their existence, their mission. And so the second profile I call is the Machiavellians. So these are very political, self-serving activists, right? And so these are folks that have Facebook pages up. They're out there at the public hearings. They're facilitating petitions and rallies, and they are not necessarily concerned about the neighbors as much as about their own self-interest. And in many cases, they want to be the next mayor, commissioner, council person, and so they see this as a platform for them to raise their profile and fight against a sustainable project, a well-intentioned developer, in order for them to get in the office. And what makes this unique, and why I opened up the way I opened up on this video, is they are aware of the fear of change, right? And so they exploit it. Both these groups, the Crusaders and the Machiavellians, they exploit the fear of change. They exploit the unknown, and they exploit the lack of information that the developer has neglected to put into the public square. And so this is where the NIMBYism just really blows, because these are opportunists that have no intention of trying to mediate a win-win scenario for the community. And in fact, they're willing to kill a good project that's going to provide jobs, going to provide tax revenue, fund new schools, or the school system, and so they can elevate and promote their own profile. But here's the real beef that I have in my 30 years of watching all this, is that they never get called out, right? The elected officials are afraid to say anything to them because they have some perceived influence on the voters. The developer's not going to call them out because they have to be above the fray. They got to be the corporate good neighbor. Reporters are not going to investigate the self-serving interests here because these guys are gold mines, right? These NIMBY activists are feeding them the misinformation and misconstrued facts. They're giving them great sound bites. And so we know the reporters need that conflict and controversy from these NIMBY activists in order to sell the newspapers, etc. Also, even the allies. You got to be careful with the allies, because if you have them calling out these activists, you're taking them off message for the positive infusion of narratives, stories, and facts that that you need with the third parties on behalf of the application and developer. And so you bring that all together. It winds up being that this is one of the stronger components of NIMBY opposition. When you have homeowners that are just reacting to fear of change in the grapevine, typically they're much more approachable, and you can sit down with some sincere conversation and exchange of concerns and facts, and it usually comes out with concessions that make a win-win outcome. But in the case here, you definitely need more sophisticated strategies with these NIMBY activists who are not going to give up their self-interest for the benefit of the community. So how do you do that? Well, there's definitely strategies and tactics, and I would encourage you to subscribe here to the NIMBY War Room channel so you can receive those strategies and tactics. And while you're hitting subscribe right now, I would appreciate you hitting like, maybe sharing this with someone that has a like-minded and wanted to say what is thinking what I said at the front end of this video. But also, you can go into the description right here, and you'll get two freebies. One is the free ebook that I wrote, the Art of NIMBY Warfare, and it talks about my barcode, and that will certainly help proactively preempt these NIMBY activists. And also the NIMBY War Room newsletter. It's free, and there's a link in the description, so go ahead and hit that. And once again, I appreciate you subscribing here and supporting the channel and being part of this movement. And so you do all those things, get the freebies in the description and subscribe. You will certainly be able to overcome the NIMBY activists and their self-serving cause, and you'll turn your NIMBY opposition into yes in my backyard opportunities. I'll see you next time.